This may be a lot of things, this moment we're living through, but it is definitely not about Black lives. And remember that when they come for you, and at this rate, they will.
They're going to come for you. Ridiculous. Of course, that was Tucker Carlson in what many are calling his most racist segment yet. We'll have to see on that one. But so, wait, he's talking about the mob, right? So who's this mob of people? Black Lives Matter. So you mean black people, right? And they're coming for you. They're coming for you. Really? Why would they come for you, Tucker Carlson? I mean, other than, of course, all the hideous things that you say, but you're telling your audience that these people are coming for them. Well, now, wait a minute. Here's the thing, right? So now, earlier in the segment, he talked about armed mobs of Black Lives Matter people. Now, wait a minute. I thought the left was trying to take away guns. On the contrary, I'm actually seeing a lot of people on the left looking at gun ownership or have already purchased weapons to defend themselves against, well, what they perceive as fascists. So I'm actually seeing a surge of people that are arming themselves on the left. The left, they're trying to take your guns, and they also make the argument, and I've heard this before, that, hey, man, we shouldn't be relying on the police. This is a conservative argument that I heard against gun control. Because, man, in the time that you're waiting for the police to show up, a criminal can kill you 4 times and rape your entire family, plus your dog. So you'll be dead. The criminals. And so if you take away the guns, only the criminals are going to have guns, right? But again, Tucker Carlson talks about these armed mobs and why we need the police. Weird. No, you know what this is? Tucker Carlson, this segment, yes, is it racist? Yes. It's also fear porn. And now, before I get into more of that, again, because I only showed you just a little bit, a little snippet, a little appetizer. So now here's part of the course.
This may be a lot of things, this moment we're living through, but it is definitely not about Black lives. And remember that when they come for you, and at this rate, they will. Anyone who's ever been subjected to the rage of the mob knows the feeling. It's like being swarmed by hornets. You cannot think clearly. And the temptation is to panic. But you can't panic. You've got to keep your head and tell the truth. Tell the truth. If you show weakness of any kind, they will crush you. Ask Drew Brees. By some accounts, poor Drew Brees is on his 4th apology for the crime of defending the American flag. He decided to apologize, and now they're using him as a propaganda organ. Hostage tape after hostage tape. At a moment like this, there is no advantage in cowardice, in being Mitt Romney. You think you're saving yourself. You're just empowering the worst people who hate you.
So much projection here. But again, I got to ask, who's the mob, Tucker? That entire segment, along with being just full of fear-mongering, of course, is also incredibly coded. I mean, again, who does he think he's referring to as the mob? Black people, leftists? Well, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but that the mob is not going to come to rural Pennsylvania. It's not the, stuff on your farm that Black Lives Matters wants. No. You know what they want? For police to stop shooting them. I mean, it's fairly simple, right? Now, to take that message, to turn it around, and to say that these people, they're coming to get you in your primarily white neighborhoods, is not just a dog whistle, it's a human whistle. It's loud enough, everybody can hear it. Everybody. Now, he also says, Democrats and the Black Lives Matter, well, they're trying to eliminate the police. Well, I mean, a lot of the conversation is actually on defunding the police, which isn't actually what it sounds like. So now, first, before I explain what that is, the Democratic Party right now is saying, whoa, let's not defund the police. No, we need the cops. Why is that? Well, cops happen to protect the wealthy. And of course, who owns a lot of the property? Wealthy people. Okay. So Joe Biden says, oh, no, let's not defund the police, right? Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about reform, right? Well, we've been talking about reform for years, for decades. And so I mean, it seems like it's more useless platitudes. So now defund, right? Well, what does that mean? Well, the right wing wants to tell you that, well, if you defund the police, it means they're just going to completely get rid of the police. There's going to be no cops whatsoever. That's actually not true. That's abolition of police. And yes, there are some on the left that are calling for the abolition of police. But defund just means taking away some of their excessive funding that we put into these departments and redistributing that to things like education, to things that will actually try to reduce the crime rate. For example, putting money into mental health screenings, putting money into anti-poverty programs, that kind of stuff, into after-school programs, things that have been shown to reduce the crime rates in the city, to be able to create more jobs so that people can work. And so that's the kind of stuff. Right now, in many cities, you have police departments that take an enormous amount of money in the budget. And of course, a lot of this is a result of, for example, in the 1980s, where Biden and a lot of the Democrats decided to adopt the Republicans' tough on crime mentality. Now, the thing about this is you had a lot of crime back in the 80s. Now, what's that a result of? You're not going to believe me, right? A lot of this has to do with lead poisoning. Let's be honest, right? What does lead do? Well, lead makes people more aggressive. It heightens people's aggression. Now, what we had leaded gasoline back in the 60s, right? So we had all of this lead pollution in the air, in the water. And I forget the name of the scientist who found this out, who did all of these studies on lead and then really pushed to reduce the amount of lead in the air, in the environment. Now, of course, the result of having all this lead is you had a lot of people who were hyper aggressive. And in the places where you had all this pollution, i.e., low income neighborhoods, which happen to be more people of color, that's where you had that aggression epidemic. We still have areas that are low income, that are minority areas, that are exposed to lead poisoning. Look at Flint. And that's going to show up in the future where people have cognitive issues and also issues with aggression. And so that's going to lead, of course, to an increase in policing. And so that's, again, that's from a scientific perspective. Claire Patterson, thank you. One of our viewers has said that the scientists that had fought against all of this lead pollution and went to Congress was Claire Patterson. And so, no, that was something that was really important. Okay. So now that said, okay, we don't have as much of an issue as we did back in the past. Now, look, you've seen these administrations, Democrats and Republicans, roll back protections and continue what's going on in Flint, was, of course, lead poisoning. So we are going to see that issue. But understand that back in the 80s, this is why you had all of this extra policing, all this tough on crime stuff, or at least that's one of the factors. Other factors are, of course, racism. And racist policing. And, you had efforts to try and fill, prison beds and private, all this different stuff, right? And so we have that problem. But at the same time, what we should be doing is taking funding away and putting it into other areas in the community to solve these problems without having to invoke a heavy-handed approach. And so that's the issue, right? That's what we need to do. We need to go after the root causes of criminal behavior. That's poverty, desperation, mental illness, etc. We also need to get rid of things like the drug war. The drug war has caused a massive amount of violence, state-sanctioned violence, as well as, gang violence. And so we need to get rid of those things. We need to defund the police to make more funding available for these other programs. It's not saying get rid of the police, but we don't need to have these, not only just defund, but demilitarize as well. And it's not exactly the same thing. So that said, Tucker Carlson says, no, we shouldn't defund the police at all. We should have this police state that terrorizes communities of color with Bearcats and drones, predator drones, and then claims that leftists want to replace the cops with armed woke militias. Now, again, let me go back here, right? And go back to the conservative arguments of militias, right? No, wait, are conservatives in favor of militias? Well, only if they're white right-wingers. If they're armed leftists like Black Panthers, they hate them. Hate them. And so black people picks up a gun, he's automatically a thug. White person picks up an AR-15, you're a patriot. That's how this works. It's not an even playing field. That said, right, this is, what he's talking about is the right-wing fantasy of getting his guns or in really toppling a tyrannical government. That's what that is. Wasn't it a couple of months ago that these same people were ready to do that because they couldn't go and get a haircut? Now they say, oh, no, it's the black people. It's the armed woke mobs that are trying to do this. And we don't accept that. We support the state. The hypocrisy, right? When it comes to actual oppression and state-sanctioned brutality, these supposed constitutional Second Amendment warriors are not just absent, they're on the side of repressive government. And they cannot wait to deep throat them boots. Now, furthermore, in that segment, there's more scaremongering. He said the left has taken over the Pentagon and now plan to do the same to law enforcement. When did the left take over the Pentagon? No. If the left took over the Pentagon, we would defund that too. We would slash the funding by 2/3, which would still make us the most, have the biggest war budget in the history of all other countries combined. We wouldn't have so much egregious funding, but we would still have an incredibly well-funded military. If we slashed it by 2/3, and we could take that money and fund healthcare for every single American. He also said this: imagine if Black Lives Matter rioters had weapons and immunity from prosecution. That's what they're talking about, partisan law enforcement. It's projection, man. Remember, you had state governments in cities passing 54 measures that restrict and criminalize nonviolent protest, including, get this, immunity for drivers to run over protesters who block traffic. Immunity for rioters, right? And people with weapons were, and that's what they say that Black Lives Matter is trying to do, which again is not true. Again, the entire purpose of Black Lives Matter is to say, hey, we don't want to get shot by police anymore. That's it. That's all they're asking for. And to reform and defund police departments into something that actually serve the community. It's amazing. 100% fear-mongering, 100% racist projection. Tucker Carlson, what he's doing is he's riling up scared white people into a lather in the hopes that Trump or Republicans will get elected as a result. And then do a gigantic police crackdown on leftists. Well, that's what they want. They want to keep minorities in their place as effectively second-class citizens by portraying their right to not be murdered by police as the mob. It's the most transparent racist conspiracy I've ever seen. But understand, this is who Tucker Carlson is. Do not be fooled at the times that he actually espouses working class populism. He said earlier in that segment, Democrats aren't really doing anything to help the community. Now, is that true in some circumstances? Absolutely. And this is how he gets you, burying kernels of truth within racist propaganda. He talks about, well, I can't believe Democrats haven't shut down the payday loan industry that preys on black people, and not just black people, but working class people of all colors. Well, there's a reason that both Democrats and Republicans support the payday loan industry. It's because of their lobbyists on Capitol Hill. It always comes down to money. So these very institutions that Tucker Carlson wants to call out, but only for Republicans, give to both Republicans and Democrats, which allow them to continue operating. And there are Democrats, progressives, that are trying to crack down on the payday loan industry. And of course, are blocked by establishment Democrats and Republicans. Don't let him sucker you into this, because this is a way, burying those little kernels of truth, is Tucker Carlson's way of sucking people into white supremacy. Don't fall for it. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.